Welcome everyone to this channel where I will be sharing episode reviews of that 1960s television show that I enjoy so much, Lost in Space. I encourage you to like and subscribe so that you don't miss each new installment as I work my way through all 83 episodes of this wonderful series. Up next, Season 1, Episode 6, Welcome Stranger. Will is tinkering with the Jupiter's radio, sending out a signal that he hopes will be received by anyone that could possibly help them. Indeed, a ship picks up that signal, lands, and incredibly, it is a ship that was launched from Earth many years ago. Back at the time, its astronaut, Jimmy Hapgood, came down with a bout of wanderlust, and has been exploring the mysteries of the galaxy ever since. Hapgood's ship is in good shape, and with the aid of some of the Jupiter's navigational equipment, could make it back to Earth. After some emotional struggle, John convinces Maureen that maybe they should send the children, Will and Penny, back to Earth with Hapgood. Hapgood, however, doesn't take too kindly to the suggestion, and Smith then sees an opportunity to maybe have that seat for himself. Jimmy, however, is even less inclined to have Smith as a passenger. So here we are, the first installment of Lost in Space after the first 5 episodes, which borrowed large portions of content from the on-aired pilot. It is an episode that I love for many reasons, which I will share throughout this review. My positive perspective on this episode, however, is certainly not universal, as many fans actually dislike it quite a lot. As a kid and even a young adult, I remember not liking it very much myself. It has since grown on me, so much so that it's now one of my favorites. I'll touch on all of this later in my review, but for now, on to our story. Will is using the Jupiter's radio to send out a signal that might be picked up by any passing ship. John reprimands him for doing so during an electrical storm, as it can create a homing signal. Smith becomes alarmed that some alien ship might home in on them. John is dismissive of Smith's concerns, even sarcastically so, but it turns out that Smith was right, and they see something coming in on the radar. In the morning, the entire crew gathers around the radar to track the flight of the incoming ship. After it lands, Don and John head out to investigate, and bring Smith, Will, and the robot along as well. After some time on the search, Don believes they are getting close, and the robot senses that the traveler is now approaching. From a hilltop, that traveler emerges, and to everyone's astonishment, he is a human. Indeed, an American astronaut, wearing a spacesuit, sweaty cowboy hat, and smoking a corncob pipe. He jumps down and with an air of confidence introduces himself.
His footwork's gonna have to be a lot more nimble than that if he figures on hitting me. Hapgood's my name, boys. Jimmy Hapgood.
I'm John Robinson.
Howdy.
This is Don
After
White.
talking a bit with the Robinsons and learning that they are just as lost as he is, Hapgood launches into what will be only the first of his many little colloquialisms.
No, sir.
Well, how about that? Then you're all just like me, ain't you? You lost as a wood tick on a bald mountain.
John asks to see his ship, what Hapgood affectionately refers to as Traveling Man. Jimmy tells of having taken off from Earth back in 1982 on a mission to Saturn. As Hapgood describes it, maybe he honed in on the wrong star, or maybe that star was actually his own curiosity, and he's been wandering the galaxy ever since. John wants to get back to the Jupiter and check in with the family. He offers to leave Will behind to show Jimmy the way. Hapgood starts to describe to Will some of the things he's seen. As he states it,
Well, I tell you, finding things that you know can't exist but do. Happenings that'll put your heart up in your mouth and your blood down your toes. Living things that breathe in fire and swim in ice. Yes, sir. And you know something, Sonny? I ain't even seen a smidgen of it yet.
Hapgood begins to decontaminate his ship. Will, completely enthralled with his stories, offers to take over the decontamination of Traveling Man if Jimmy will share some more of his tales. Unfortunately, Will isn't thorough, and almost immediately after running off, spores begin to appear on Traveling Man. Back at the Jupiter, there is a very emotion-filled exchange between John and Maureen. John shares how Hapgood's ship is in good condition and could possibly get back to Earth. He approaches Maureen with the gut-wrenching suggestion, revisiting the question they had while still back on Earth. Did they as parents have the right to bring Will and Penny on their flight? This is an exceptional scene, so well acted by Guy and especially June. Meanwhile, listening in on that conversation from the Jupiter is Smith, already hatching his own scheme that if anyone goes back to Earth with Hapgood, it should be him and not the children. Later, Will and Hapgood make it back to camp, and Jimmy can't help but be astonished by the technology of the Jupiter 2, even pondering the ethical question of sending entire families out into space. He tours the ship, and John and Don show off the astrogator. Jimmy says exactly what John wanted to hear, that if he had equipment like that aboard Traveling Man, he'd have no trouble getting back to Earth. With that, John tells him to take it, and Hapgood offers up some more of his charming little expressions.
Something wrong? Well, the quickness of the mind has deceived the eye.
What? What do you mean?
Well, I appreciate you give it, John, but that thing's too big. It's too heavy.
Well, there must be something you can jettison.
If I jettison any more than I already have, I'd have to walk home.
Angling for his own seat on Hapgood's ship, I enjoy watching Smith, in his deliberately dramatic manner, tell the men that they give up too easily, and presents a solution of his own to their problem.
Do the trick. And just where do you expect to find that?
Right here.
Come.
Smith performs an operation to remove the necessary part from the robot and make it available to Hapgood. I'll have a few additional thoughts about the significance of this scene later in my review. That evening, in anticipation of Hapgood's flight back to Earth, there's a dinner to celebrate. During that dinner, Hapgood begins to flirt a bit with Judy, right in front of Don, no less. Meanwhile, inside the Jupiter, John and Maureen break the news to Will and Penny about their plans to send them home with Hapgood. Neither of them want to go, but John is resolute in sending them, even though it pains both of them as parents so greatly. Yet another touching scene by both Guy and June. After their conversation with the children, John and Maureen come out of the ship and Jimmy jumps up to greet and thank them. Hapgood has some wonderful monologues in this episode, and one of them comes right here.
That was a long time ago. You know, nothing in space has ever welcomed me, and I'm sure it's been the same with you. Seems like no matter where you go, they got the place posted. Says, keep out. Enter at your own risk. Pretty soon you begin to feel like there's no difference between living and dying. And that's the way it's been for me. But meeting you always changed all that. There is a difference. There's a big difference between living and dying. And I'd just about forgotten about it.
Hapgood is portrayed wonderfully by the talented actor Warren Oates. During these wonderful monologues, I love how Hapgood comes across as thoughtful and introspective while still being shrouded in his cowboy simpleness. There is some weighty seriousness mixed in with Oates' smile that happens to be about a mile wide. It all comes across with a heartfelt sincerity and genuineness. This scene is very well done, and there is much more of it still to come. John speaks with Hapgood about taking the kids back to Earth with him. To everyone's great surprise, Jimmy turns angry at the mere suggestion. After some harsh words from Hapgood, John maintains his composure and very graciously returns to the ship, saying that he has some charts that may be helpful to him. Don gets up and insists that Hapgood apologize to John. In a very cowboy sort of way, a barroom brawl breaks out between the two of them. While a serious scene that advances the story, it also offers up a few smiles. Somewhat stereotypically, Judy ends the fight by taking a frying pan to the head of Hapgood. Meanwhile, Smith is delighting in all of this, believing this will increase his chances of being the one to hitch a ride back to Earth with Jimmy. Indeed, the next morning, Smith catches up with Hapgood and tries to persuade him, boasting, falsely of course, about who he is and what he can do for Jimmy back on Earth. Hapgood is very clear, however, that he has no plans to take Smith or anyone else along with him when he takes off. The next morning, Don and John are working on some heavy equipment hanging by a cable on pulleys. I enjoy the quick little exchanges that happen here. Hapgood asking if they're still mad.
Hello, Hapgood.
Once more, there's a simple charm to this scene, these lines, and the way they're delivered.
Say, if you fellas still mad at me, you just say so and I'll leave.
We're not angry. At least I'm not.
You still mad? No. I'm just sorry I didn't hit you any harder. It was a pretty good fight, wasn't it? Yeah, that it was.
Hapgood asks if John still wants him to have the guidance equipment since he's not going to be taking the kids. John, ever gracious, says, sure, someone might as well get home. As Don and John hoist the equipment, it starts to get away from them. Hapgood steps in to essentially catch it with his back and is injured in the process. Once again, I marvel at the effectiveness of this scene. This equipment probably doesn't weigh more than 10 pounds in real life, but all of the performers make it come across quite convincingly as something that is fantastically heavy. Jimmy is resting his back inside the ship, and Maureen brings him some soup. The Robinsons' repeated acts of kindness begin to weigh on Hapgood. He begins to explain why he doesn't want to take the children, and once more, the Robinsons demonstrate their signature graciousness, Maureen interrupting him and making it clear.
Well, look, about Will and Penny,
You're the commander of your ship. Your decision is the only one that matters.
After a short time, Hapgood is feeling better and is ready to march off to run a check on Traveling Man, and Will and Penny go along to hear some more tales of his journeys. When they get to his ship, they see that the alien spores have grown monstrous, both in size and nature. Their movement, and especially their sound, help to sell the danger that these spores represent. Jimmy warns the children to stay at a distance while he runs to the ship for a sprayer. Will and Penny's curiosity take hold, and they begin to wander among the huge animated spores. One starts to reach for Penny. Clearly afraid, she backs up and falls into a large spore that essentially swallows her. Hapgood leaps down from his ship to rescue her, while Will starts spraying the spores. Hapgood manages to pull Penny from the danger, and once more, there's a real charming scene. Everything from chastising Will to not make fun of her, even though he had yet to do anything of the sort, to taking the entire incident down a notch once Maureen and John arrive. This is followed by a wonderful exchange when Hapgood has a change of heart and offers to take the kids after all. Maybe he began to feel something for them, or maybe he had a more full appreciation of just how dangerous outer space can be for a couple of young and curious children. While this unfolds, you can't miss Maureen's, Penny's, or Will's expression. The kids still don't want to go, and Maureen in her heart really doesn't want to send them. Her inner struggle continues, knowing that it is the right thing to do for the kids. It's all played wonderfully. Smith, always angling for himself, tries to convince Hapgood that traveling with the children would be unbearable, but Hapgood sticks to his guns, as he says,
This is the right thing I'm doing, and I'm going to do it.
Seeing that he will not be able to persuade Hapgood, Smith turns his attention instead to the children. He tries to alarm them, suggesting that he can't be sure that the equipment he transplanted from the robot into Traveling Man will work correctly. Then he pulls on the kids' heartstrings, telling them that their parents don't really want them to go, and how any other children might run away and hide. I love how, in Smith's manipulative way, he says that Will and Penny are not ordinary children and would never do that, while firmly planting in their minds that that is exactly what they should do. As launch time approaches, Maureen realizes that she can't find Will and Penny. She alerts John and once more begins to question whether they really should make them go if they don't want to. John, however, remains resolute.
John, they didn't really want to go. Maybe we should...
They're going.
Judy asks Hapgood to delay his takeoff while John and Maureen look for the kids. Jimmy is equally resolute that he needs to keep to his scheduled time for liftoff, which is in just 20 minutes. Smith has been lurking in the background and hears all of this. Now it's time for him to run off and try once more to persuade Hapgood to take him as a passenger instead of the children. Meanwhile, aboard his capsule, awaiting the time for liftoff, Hapgood has a conversation with himself. He struggles with the idea of bringing Will and Penny back to Earth and settling into a rather ordinary life for himself back home, versus his wanderlust and all there is out in the universe he has yet to see. Will and Penny are found, but too late to board Traveling Man, and Jimmy takes off without them. This clip of Hapgood's ship flying up into space is very well done. Not only are the effects great, the ship that we see heading off into space actually looks like the ship that we saw on the ground. This clip of Traveling Man taking off will be used again and again throughout the entire series, regardless of what each ship might have looked like while it was on the ground. Smith also arrives too late and repeatedly calls out for Hapgood to come back for him. We get a neat angle looking straight down at Smith on the ground from high up. Our last scene has the Robinsons and Don back at the Jupiter as Hapgood calls in from Traveling Man. We're treated to another bit of excellent dialogue delivered wonderfully by Warren Oates, capturing once more the introspective side of Jimmy Hapgood, as well as that part of him that craves continued adventure. While this episode concludes in a very sitcom-like, tie-it-all-up happy ending, the quality of the dialogue as well as the quality of the acting makes it feel so much more substantial and meaningful. It's a real satisfying conclusion to an excellent episode.
But they weren't too keen on going back to Earth, and that's the truth. Well, neither was I, and you get right down to it.
Well, we thought you were.
Well, so did I. But I got to thinking it over. You know, John, I figured there ain't nothing down there that I haven't seen or done twice. But out here, I ain't hardly scratched the surface.
Finally, we have John, Don, and even Will drilling for deuteronium, which they refine into fuel for the Jupiter. Penny finds an explosive pellet loose on the ground and comes looking for John with it. She wanders onto the drilling site just as the men are set for some blasting. John jumps up, leaps, and tries to push her out of the way just as the explosion goes off. And this is our cliffhanger setting up episode number 7, My Friend, Mr. Nobody. So here, let me insert a few additional thoughts about Welcome Stranger. Unlike episodes 1 through 5, this is the first episode not derived from the pilot, and as a consequence, we begin to see some changes. There are some simple things, such as the cliffhangers, which really aren't cliffhangers any longer. Because the first 5 episodes all came out of one long story arc, the end of one episode really did tie right into the start of the next. From Welcome Stranger on through the balance of the series, cliffhangers are not so much cliffhangers as much as really just a preview of the next episode. Also, the series slowly begins to fall into a Visitor of the Week kind of mode. Some say that Lost in Space became a sort of intergalactic version of Gilligan's Island. While that may be a bit more true by the middle of Season 2, we are still quite a distance from that, and many coming episodes remain very interesting and imaginative. At this still early stage in the series, the quality of Lost in Space remains very high. Everything from the story ideas, to the writing, to the performances. While there remains ample action and adventure, we're beginning to see more character development. For instance, thinking about Welcome Stranger, as much as it was about Hapgood, it was also really about John and Maureen's moral struggle, about what would be best for the children, balancing what they know is best for them with the heartache of knowing that they would not likely see Will and Penny ever again. Here, let me take some time to touch on why some fans don't enjoy this episode. Like I said, there was a time when I didn't like it much myself. That's because it's easy to kind of dismiss Welcome Stranger as the first of Lost in Space's many somethings in space episodes. You know, Vikings in space, pirates, zookeepers, knights, miners, hillbillies, and so on. This week just happens to be cowboys in space. At least, that's how I used to think of it. And that's the way it can appear unless you take the time to look past what I'll call Hapgood's cowboyness. There's no question that Hapgood's cowboy qualities are a little bit over the top. In reality, though, Hapgood isn't really that silly a character. Over the course of my life, I've met real people exactly like him. Oh, maybe not the corncob pipe, but everything else, from the vocal affectations to the sweaty cowboy hat to the hooping and the hollering, are all there in real people I've met. Now, admittedly, I'm guessing most of those folks would not have been selected by NASA to fly a spaceship, so maybe yes, Hapgood's cowboyness is still a bit over the top, but not really so much that he ends up becoming a caricature of himself. At least not for me. I can accept his cowboyness. Now, the beauty of looking past Hapgood's cowboyness is that that's what opens you up to a more full appreciation of everything else this episode has to offer, and that's a lot. For one thing, there's our guest star, Warren Oates, and all he brought to his portrayal of Jimmy Hapgood. Oates was a very accomplished actor with a long list of film and TV credits. To many, he may be best known as Sergeant Hulka in the movie Stripes. Here in Welcome Stranger, Oates is quite believable as the independent-minded space cowboy. He has oodles of on-screen charisma, and his big smile is about as charming as they come. That is coupled with what I consider to be some of the most well-written dialogue of the series. There are so many wonderful lines, and Oates does a fantastic job waxing poetic over the wonders he has seen and how much more there is still to see out there. Indeed, Oates' portrayal of Hapgood at times seems overly simple, while at the same time being quite complex, if not even conflicted, making him an interesting character to watch. Warren Oates, his lines, and the way he delivers them are a key to making this such a fun episode to watch. Then there's the comedy that we see slowly emerging during this episode. This comedy isn't comprised of simple, gratuitous one-liners inserted randomly to punch up a script. There's a real wit about them, always occurring in scenes that continue to advance the story in a meaningful way. Maybe one of the better examples of this is the scene involving Smith operating on the robot. With that in mind, let's take a moment to consider the evolution of Dr. Smith as a character. During the earliest episodes, Smith was very villainous, indeed a potential killer. He obviously became much more comedic by the second season, but that's a gradual journey. Up to this point, Smith has really only offered the occasional witty retort here or a quick quip there. His journey to becoming a more comedic character in the show takes a meaningful step forward with the scene involving operating on the robot. This is a serious scene that continues to advance the story, but it also ends up being a showcase for Jonathan's skill as a comedic actor. There are some simple little smiles along the way, such as when the robot's film becomes exposed, but there are also some details that are so subtle that they may even pass unnoticed. For instance, when Smith asks for a micro-wrench, and Will passes him one that is positively huge. All of the pieces that comprise the scene are comedic on some level, but not in that silly Season 2 sort of way. This is comedy that has a wit about it, such that it doesn't detract or overshadow what is otherwise a serious scene in a serious episode. So all of this said, are there any misses or minuses in Welcome Stranger? For me, I consider there to be only one. No, it's not Hapgood's cowboyness, which admittedly could have been toned down a bit, but as already mentioned, I'm fine with it just the way it is. My only real problem with this entire episode, and something that does always bother me a bit each time I watch it, is John and Don's reaction when they first meet Hapgood. Upon seeing him for the first time, they should have been absolutely shocked, indeed overwhelmed, at the impossible odds of happening upon another lost traveler from Earth on this distant and unknown planet. John should have been absolutely blown away, and that astonishment should have been expressed more in his dialogue. Instead, John just seems far too casual about meeting Hapgood, almost as though he just bumped into an old friend at the supermarket. From Don, we get a quick, "it can't be," but there should have been far more of that kind of reaction. It also seems like Hapgood becoming lost in space back in the 80s should be a story with which Don and John should already be amply familiar. There should have been some, "Gee, we thought something terrible happened to you. Glad to see you're alive and okay." This initial dialogue between these men just doesn't seem to fit the amazingness of two sets of people lost in space decades apart, stumbling upon one another on this remote planet. But that is my only negative for this entire episode, and it is completely overwhelmed by all that I love about it. For me, Welcome Stranger is just a fun episode. I love Warren Oates in the role. I love the moral issue and the tough decisions weighing on John and Maureen. I love Smith's manipulative efforts. I love the emerging wit and comedy. And most of all, I love the dialogue and how it is delivered. It's easy for me to call this one another A+. I rank it 6th for the season and 8th for the series, well ahead of even one of the first 5. So with that, let me give the last word to, well, who else? Jimmy Hapgood.
Look at that. Did you ever see so many stars in all your life? It seems like they're right there just for the taking. If a man could live forever, he'd really have it made, wouldn't he?
If you would like to see the full series, at the time of this recording, it presently airs for free on MeTV. You will also find the full series streaming on Hulu for a modest monthly subscription. That said, you can still find the series on DVD. Better still, pick up Lost in Space on Blu-ray. On that set, the image quality has been sharpened, and there is some excellent bonus material, including commentary by some of the cast. Like I said, I'm a fan, and for me at least, the Blu-ray is a must-have. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Welcome Stranger. One of the things I enjoy most about sharing reviews like this is how different fans perceive each episode quite differently, and I invite you to leave your own perspectives below in the comments. Most of all, I hope you will come back to join me when I review our next episode, My Friend Mr. Nobody. Once again, I recommend subscribing so that you don't miss each new installment. Thanks for watching.